Well, hi guys, it's that time. It's our Monday miracle story. I want to tell you the account of the first time I ever saw someone raised from the dead. This has been maybe 5 years or maybe 6 even now. One of my students that was in my youth group, I'm in there teaching on a Wednesday night and my cell phone rings, and it turns out it's her dad calling me to tell me that they had found her grandfather in the floor, blue, his tongue hanging out, not breathing. The EMS people, when they got there, declared him DOA. Although they did put the balloon on him and just try to keep some oxygen going. They even carried him to the local hospital and put him on oxygen, but they tested him and he did not have any brain activity. All the doctors at both hospitals, he's carried to 2 different hospitals. I believe it was 2, maybe 3, but all the doctors had already declared him to be expired and for them to call the family in, that he was never going to wake up. They tested no brain activity. So I went home with my student so she could go to bed and get up and go take her exams. It was the end of the school year and she couldn't miss. So I stayed there, and the next day when I got up and made sure she got off to school, I told her, I said, well, I'm going to go to the hospital and pray for your granddaddy. And of course she was just like excited to hear me say that, because she knew that I had laid hands on and healed people, and she had seen a dog get healed of an incurable disease, and so she had all this hope in her. Now I lived about an hour and 10 minutes from there, and then I lived yet another hour and 10 minutes from my house to the hospital. So I drove home, I got cleaned up, and then I went to the hospital. But during that time of me coming home, getting dressed and driving, even the time at home getting dressed, I listened to the series by Andrew Womack, The Power of Faith-Filled Words, just to get my mind right, and I'm in my mind, I'm praying in the Spirit, and I'm listening to his teaching. That is one of his very best teachings. I've listened to that at least 8 times, and this time I knew that was where I needed to go to get myself prepared for what I was going to go do. So when I get to the hospital, when I get to the hospital, I walk down the hallway, and I asked the nurse, I said, is there any change in Mr. So-and-so? And she just gave me this horrible, mean look and went, no, real mean and snippy. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, is it okay if I go in the room where he's at? And she said, well, yeah, like that. I guess it doesn't matter if somebody is dead. They don't care if you go in the room where they're at. So I went on in, and no one was in there because all the family was making phone calls and setting up the arrangements for this man according to what the doctors had told him. So I go in, and just so you know, I wanted to really know if he was really not responsive. So I took one of these big veins, as you get older, you get these big veins, and I was twisting it and patting him on his hand, and I'm watching his eyes because I want to see if there's a reaction. Nothing was going on, guys. So I came up to the bed, and I was patting him on his forehead pretty hard. I mean, not bruising him, but hard enough. But did you know his eyes never moved? There was no muscle or nerve reaction whatsoever. So I laid hands on him, and I started praying in tongues over him. And then I commanded for his brain to start functioning, to be healed and to function. And then I started commanding all of his organs, every cell, every tissue, every organ in his entire body to be healed and to function. And then I spoke to his brain. I said, now you start sending those signals out to the body, and body, you respond to those brain signals and messages. And then I said, I know you can hear me. Open your eyes. And oh my goodness, his eyes opened, these beautiful blue eyes opened. And guys, I'm just going to be honest with you. Blondie wanted to run and jump straight through that plate glass window because I had never seen a person that had been declared DOA with funeral arrangements made open their eyes. And of course, there's no manual, guys. There's just no manual. You can't just go, okay, well, what's next? There's no such thing. So I'm like, oh my goodness, Father, what should I do next? And I got a download from Holy Spirit. And he said, tell him this. And I told him, I said, did you know that you were dead before I came up here? And he shook his head, yes. I said, God sent me up here to wake you up, to give you a message. And I told him, I said, the Lord said to tell you that you could live 10 more years if you would quit smoking so much and drinking so heavy. I didn't even know the guy drank. I did know we smoked, but I didn't know we smoked 3 packs a day, okay? So God gave me that message to give him, and he's got tears in his eyes. And the next thing I did is just talk to him about God and whether he was born again and if he knew where he was going to go. And of course, he's really upset, and because he's got tears in his eyes. And now, look, just so you know, I asked him some yes and no questions to make sure he was cognitive and thinking clearly, and he answered all of my questions perfectly. I asked him if he knew who I was, and he shook his head no, he didn't. And I said, I'm Mama Faye, I'm the youth leader, I'm your granddaughter's youth leader. And then he knew me, because he had met me one time before, and he said yes, he knew me then. So anyway, I did walk him through a prayer of salvation. And then, after I was done, I went and sat over in the corner, and I'm just reading my Bible, just kind of hanging out. Well, my youth kid's mom walks in the room, and she asked me, is there any change or whatever? And I looked at her, and I said, oh yeah, he's been awake talking to me. Can you imagine what she thought? I mean, I could tell from her eyes that she's like, wow, this woman needs to be in a loony bin. But anyway, she just looked kind of funny at me. I said, well, let me wake him up and you can talk to him. Now, this is where faith really, the rubber meets the road, right? Because after I led him through the salvation prayer, God just told me, tell him to go back to sleep, and I did. I said, look, you're tired and you need to sleep. So he's sleeping while I'm reading my Bible, okay? When she comes in, and I tell her, I said, well, you can talk to him. I'll just wake him up. And I go over and I pat him on his hand. And I said, hey, your baby girl is here, and she really would like to talk to you. Will you wake up and talk to her? And then blue eyes popped open again. And he recognized her, and they're just talking to each other. Well, here's the end of the story. He did get healed, he did go home, and he did live. And there was not a funeral, guys, okay? And get this, he actually quit smoking so heavy, because remember, God said stop smoking so much. He cut down and didn't smoke near, I think maybe a pack a week or something, okay? And he quit drinking so heavy. He was drinking whiskey, and he started just drinking a little beer here or there. But he was doing so good, and because he did change the things that was killing him. Remember, Jesus said, now go and sin no more. And I've said this before, sometimes for us to get our healing and to keep our healing, we have to make some decisions about the stuff that we do. And he made a decision that he wanted to live. So he cut back on smoking and quit drinking whiskey. And he was able to get healthy and well and do very well. So guys, I'm going to hop off here, and God bless you, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. And I have no idea what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, but I promise you God will tell me between now and when I get up in the morning. I love you, and I'll see you again right here. Bye-bye.